Well, you all know about the war in Iran and the troubles which Donald Trump seems to have in bringing that to a close. But what happened to the other war that we were hearing all about? The Ukraine war. Has that finished? Has somebody won it? Can Ukraine win it? Who's telling the truth? Welcome to Lembit Öpik Live.
This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you!
Boring. 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 Boring.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that. Remember what you're doing. You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
I call again for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages, the hostages.
Welcome one and all to Lembit Öpik Live here on Unprecedented TV, where we find the facts, kill the spin and tell it as best we can on stories from all around the world. And please do like and subscribe. We've had a very interesting week in Washington, doing some up-to-the-minute broadcasts as we went along. And more to come on that this week. That's mainly been about the Iran war. What I want to talk about is a war which seems to have been forgotten. The Ukraine war, the continuing dispute between Russia, which says it's having a special military operation, and Ukraine, which says it's at war with Russia. Europe tends to agree with Ukraine more than Moscow, but doesn't seem to be able to do anything about it. A collective impotence means that slowly but surely many feel that Ukraine is losing. But that's not what you would see in the mainstream media. Lots of people in the mainstream media still seem to think that Zelensky, that's the professional clown and amateur politician who seems to be running Ukraine at the moment, or at least has that title, that man could actually win and defeat the might of the Russian army. Well, I'm not so sure. What do you think? Well, you have your say as well in the commentary. Let me now invite our friend and political expert, especially when it comes to military matters, Warren Thornton, to the show. Warren, greetings to you. How have you been?
I've been absolutely fine, thank you, Lembit. While you've been gadding around on Washington, I've been digging around in the mud of Ukraine and Russia to find out what's going on.
Which is why you're the perfect person to have this conversation. If you actually look at the headlines, and we've got a few of them, and maybe we can get one of them up there. Thank you. That's an absolute classic. This incredible claim. I'll read it out. Putin is losing the Ukraine war, but thanks to Trump, not as fast as he was. Meanwhile, Ukraine is desperately hoping the US does not notice its discreet strikes against Russia's war machine. This kind of headline is typical of, in my view, the utter rubbish which has been put out. Putin's not losing, is he?
No, absolutely he's not. Kate needs to go and take a long, hard look at her editor or the person who owns the platform that she prints this nonsense on. The absolute lunacy of the people that are pushing this propaganda is to do one thing, Lembit, and that's to try and prepare once America butt out, which they will do because they've got China coming up. They're going to leave Europe holding the bag. And of course, they're very much trying to push the fact that we're going to be left alone to try and fight this war, along with France and with Germany and a few others sort of sallying forth alongside us. We have Trump on one side, who is not a friend to Europe whatsoever. And we've got this irrational hatred of Putin. And of course, we're backing, shall we say, let's say, to be charitable, shall we, a rabid nationalist organization in Ukraine, of course, and Ukrainians are just dying in great numbers, and very much our leaders want us to do that too.
Yeah, no, you make an interesting point. First of all, rather to my surprise, that headline that we just saw, maybe we'll get it up again, is from the Huffington Post, and I often think that might be a little bit more sensible than others. Here's another one, a different one. Russia blasts through Ukraine ceasefire. as Trump-backed talks drift. Kiev and Moscow aim to signal constructive approach to U.S. Negotiators as Russia continues attacks. They're sort of blaming Russia a bit, but Ukraine's hardly been blameless on this.
No, Ukraine have broken the ceasefire on 43 occasions. And of course, you have to remember that the Telegraph and the Times are, one is the Ministry of Defence's favourite tool for getting stories out there, and the Telegraph is the MI6's favourite tool. Now, you have to remember that we've had all the nonsense about Russia eating their own children. There was one particular story, which was my particular favourite, and of course, fighting with washing machine chips and shovels. God knows what will happen, Lembit, when they get their hands on pointed sticks.
Right, so we see these sorts of headlines, and there are others, and we'll probably put them up later on in the program. But essentially, I don't get the feeling that Russia can lose, not least because America's lost interest now because of all the business in Iran, but most importantly because Trump doesn't have any time, as far as I can tell, for Vladimir Zelensky, who he doesn't regard as a serious player.
No, absolutely, because Zelensky will actually answer back. And as far as Trump's concerned, he just needs yes men, basically. And that's how he was able to get hold of Venezuela. Zelensky's a bit of an off-the-wall number because he believes, and rightly so, that Germany and that France and the UK are going to back him no matter what. So it's a bit of a delicate situation because the UK, France, Germany, they don't want to upset Trump. But they really don't like him very much either, and they'd much rather deal with Zelensky. But of course, they need America's help, and of course, that is not forthcoming. America have got their own war that they're fighting with Iran, and Zelensky and Trump, as you say, have never been the easiest of bedfellows. Even when they're trying to row in the same direction, they seem to be rowing about who's going to row the boat. But the problem that we have here, Lembit, of course, is that Russia are slowly and inexorably they're making their way and through Ukraine, gobbling it up in very small bites, and then securing it so that it can't go back to Ukrainian hands. And the problem that we have, and it is a major problem, of course, is it is using up the resources of America, and they've realised this, and it is using up the resources of the whole of Europe. And everybody's talking a good game about revamping, shall we say, all their armed forces and everything else. Well, when you're pouring billions into a black hole that Ukraine is, of course, and the bankers are quite happy for you to do that, then you've got a real problem here because you haven't got any money. You're almost completely devoid of weapons, and the weapons that you do have are outdated, no use whatsoever on the battlefields of Ukraine.
I do notice that. Well, first of all, Ukraine's virtually vanished off the headlines because everyone's more interested in talking about Iran. But you don't get the feeling that Ukraine can win. Some of the headlines that we were looking at indicate that they're saying now, oh, well, if Ukraine doesn't lose, then it's won. Now, that could be true for Tehran, but there isn't a symmetry here. Russia and America, and almost certainly the lead actor, Israel, initiated a war against Iran. And so as long as Iran's regime survives, then they've been successful. But it's a different game in Ukraine, I think. In Ukraine, Russia wants to have a buffer zone to protect its border. It also wants to denazify, particularly northeastern Ukraine. And thirdly, it wants to demilitarize Ukraine because it regards Ukraine as a risk. So it's rather different. But am I wrong about that? Is it true that if Ukraine survives, then it's won?
No, if Ukraine Ukraine will not survive. Very simply, their men are dying in great numbers. They're losing around anywhere between 1,300 to 1,600 a day. Please don't believe the Western propaganda nonsense. If Ukraine were winning, NATO would be all over this, so would America, and they'd be pushing like crazy. They're not winning. They're getting a severe beating. And the Ukrainian decent, ordinary men are being beaten up in Ukraine, thrown onto the front line with very little training. And of course, all their good troops are dead. So now they have conscripts that basically what they have is neo-national lunatics sort of grabbing hold of people off the streets, throwing them on the front line. And they are dying in vast numbers. And it's horrible to see. And of course, we in the West are cheering this absolute butchery along. We say there's a genocide in Gaza. The genocide in Gaza and the genocide that is about to happen in Lebanon, thanks to Israel, pales by comparison to the amount of Ukrainians that are dying in this.
Why the disparity? Why is Ukraine losing so many more?
Well, very, very simply, they've lost all their best troops. Most of them got in the battle for Avdiivka, and also the failed, should we say, the battle for Bakhmut, and also the crazy insurgency into places like Kursk and Belgorod, where they lost over 70,000 men. You cannot afford to keep losing your best troops. Russia can out-manufacture. Russia can fly 1,000 drones a day into various areas of Ukraine. They have hypersonic missiles that none of NATO's defense equipment can cope with. So there's going to be a major problem always round here, Lembit. They don't have enough men. They don't have enough equipment. They don't have better quality equipment. And of course, Russia are just slowly but surely grinding them into the ground.
Yeah, but I'll take you to task about the numbers, because there are various, well, here's one of them, various stories with an estimated 500,000 killed. This is in February this year. Estimated 500,000 killed. The Russia-Ukraine war was Europe's deadliest since 1945. Despite the military secrecy surrounding casualties on both sides and the difficulty of counting civilian victims, efforts outside the battlefield and cross-checking of public data have made it possible to estimate the staggering human cost of 4 years of war. And so basically it's claiming, this is I think Le Monde in France, they're claiming 500,000 dead, and it sounds to me the inference is altogether, but you estimate 2.2 million.
2.2 million dead. Right, so let's go through the numbers. Very, very straightforward. Le Monde is lying through its teeth here. Let's get into the numbers here. The last exchange of prisoners, the last exchange of the dead, and this has been going on for months. It's been utterly consistent for months. It was 41 Russians handed back to Russia, and 1,000 Ukrainians handed back. That's about 20 to 1. Now, it's not quite that on the battlefield, but over the course of the war, the Battle of Bakhmut, it was 8 to 1. There was 8 Ukrainians dying. There was a report published on that and literally sent to the Americans, and it was leaked out. And then they denied that the report had been leaked out, but it actually came from the Ukrainians' own Ministry of Defense, who were begging for money. Therefore, they were telling the Americans the proper numbers that were dying. Now, that was back in 2023. And since then, it's only gone up and up and up. And at one point, it became 16 to 1. Now it's around about 20 to 1, 18, 20 to 1. And of course, what we have here is when you times the 1,200 or 1,600 that are dying a day by the number of days of this conflict, that should tell you everything you need to know. Now, at some points, in some parts of the battles, there has been, as I say, 1,700 people dying in a day on the Ukrainian side. And of course, the Russian numbers are far, far less. But of course, propaganda and morale has to be kept up. But there are countless videos of people being beaten and thrown onto the streets that don't want to fight. That should tell you who's winning the war. There are countless videos of Ukrainians running and jumping and surrendering or deserting and climbing over fences, and thousands upon thousands of videos of Ukrainians saying how they were left to die with their commanders with no food, no water, and very little ammunition.
And we've got many, well, actually, there's a poignant example. Many examples of massive graveyards in Ukraine. I don't get why some of the press can claim that Ukraine's lost tens of thousands, but you're claiming 2.2 million. Is it just because they keep repeating the lie?
Yeah, absolutely. If you keep repeating the lie. So let's get into this. There are 250 military graves that can hold up to 50,000 people at a time. We have the video that shows that they were burning the bodies, and we have the email from BlackRock that says if you get rid of the bodies, then of course you don't have to pay the families out, which are due around about $380,000 for each dead victim. Now, of course, obviously, if they pay that out for 2.2 million, the whole of Ukraine will be bankrupt for many, many, should we say, decades and decades to come. Now, just let's give you the actual figures. Nobody doubts these figures. So let's get into this. At the height of 2023, 1 million Ukrainian men in the army, 1.2 million in reserve. Nobody doubts that. Then you have 3 mobilizations, in total 1.4 million. Nobody doubts that. You add those two together, that's 3.6 million. 100,000 mercenaries have fought in this war from various parts of the world. That brings you up to 3.7. And 400,000 have been captured by the TCC, thrown into vans and forced onto the front line. Nobody doubts that number. So that is 4.1 million men that have walked into the Ukrainian army. Now, nobody argues with the Ukraine saying that in January the 1st, 2025, they only had 900,000 men left. Okay? Now you literally take 1,200 men away from that per day, and then look at where you are here in 2026. And you're going to see the fruition of this in the summer of towards the end of the summer of this year. You will see it come to fruition when Ukraine start losing ground. Unless they're supplied with tons and tons of drones, they're going to lose ground very, very quickly. Now, just get this, Lembit. That's a total of 4.1 million men. 900,000, they said, were left on January the 1st, 2025. So let's get into that then. So what has happened to that 3.2 million men? We know that over 50,000 are in captivity, 600,000 injured. So take away 650,000. 250,000 have deserted. That leaves 2.2 million men unaccounted for, Lembit. Where have they gone?
Okay, and you're saying that that's the death toll?
Yes, absolutely.
Stay with us. You're watching me, Lembit Öpik, here on Unprecedented TV, talking about the forgotten war, the war in Ukraine, which continues, even though everyone seems to want to be talking about the situation in Iran. After the break, we're going to ask this question. What is the truth about where this is heading? And how can you know who to trust? Hopefully you trust us, but that's your prerogative. We don't dress up opinions as facts, and we share facts only when we're pretty sure they're right. Somebody else who does that is Claire Dyer, one of the absolute stalwarts of Unprecedented TV. She does Dire Consequences. She finds local issues of national importance and has the courage to share what she finds. That's Claire Dyer there, operating from London, but with national stories. Definitely worth liking and subscribing to Unprecedented TV, precisely at Unprecedented TV on YouTube anytime, just for her shows as well. Hundreds and hundreds of shows, all there for you for absolutely free. It takes 30 seconds to subscribe. Please do so. But back to the present, we're talking about an awkward little war. It's the one which no one seems to be talking about, Warren Thornton. The Ukraine situation. And before the break, I was pushing you about the figures, and we were looking at a picture of maybe we can get that up again of a grave yard. This looks huge. This looks huge. Isn't it possible just to count how many dead people there are on graves? or,
Yeah,
or
exactly that.
literally loads of people have just been buried or burned. I mean, this is so dark. It has World War II connotations, burning the bodies.
Yeah, I mean, they're saying that only 50,000 Ukrainians have died throughout the case of the entire war. Okay, now this war has been going on 1,471 days, Lembit. That would mean they would have to be losing only Ukraine 35 men a day. 35 men a day to be 50,000. Anyone who believes that, I have a bridge to sell you. Now, say we take the lower figure of 1,200 men a day, which is only roughly, we are talking 1,000, literally 1,000 kilometer front. Okay, so that is only 1.2 men per square kilometer being killed. And we know that that's happening quite a lot. Now, if you took the lowest figure, which is 1,200 a day, instead of the 1,600 that it sometimes is, that would still be 1,765,000 men that had died on the Ukrainian side during this war. Now, which one do you believe? Do you believe that they are losing only 35 men a day, or do you believe it's much more likely they're losing one man per square kilometer of the front line?
Well, it does sound on the low side. The amount of weaponry being used in itself is just quite phenomenal. And you just think there's this incredible lethal force on both sides, and we're watching something which looks terribly deadly there.
Yes.
I'm actually in a way amazed that more people haven't died, even considering the figures that you're talking about.
Yes, absolutely. There's less civilian. In actual fact, the Russians have killed. There's less civilians have died in this war than any other war going, and yet all we hear from us in the West is the war crimes that the Russians have committed.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting thing that you talk about war crimes, because this could become quite a big deal in the Iran situation, and not just against Iran, really. Okay, so huge number of deaths there. We've got people like Mark Rutte carrying on, but just before we talk about the individuals again, how bad is the actual bombing? You can make a shot like the one we're seeing on the screen there, any day of the week. But what's the truth? To what extent is Ukraine being damaged? You've already said that the targeted nature of the bombing means that there are surprisingly few civilians being killed. But what is the truth?
The truth of this is, when you are under a constant bombardment like this, Lembit, I want you to picture, if you will, and if you're a soldier who's been in this sort of thing, and here's something that we don't know, Lembit, is that none of our soldiers have been in a drone war before, not one. Nobody from Germany, nobody from France, nobody from Britain. In fact, when the Ukrainians were coming over to Britain to be trained, the soldiers there were asking them what it was like under a drone barrage. That shows you how little we actually know about this. But just imagine for a second, if you would, that you can't, half the time you can't hear these drones. They're very, very silent. They're packing explosives. They can fly into your trench and blow you up. So this nonsense of it takes 3 attackers for every defender, this is all complete nonsense. The drone warfare has totally changed everything like that. And of course, the 3-to-1 nonsense was literally put up by a student at a university. And of course, everybody took that as read, that you lose 3 attackers for every defender. It's simply not true. And of course, you are under constant bombardment. You've got shelling, you've got bombs, and then you've got drones that are literally hunting you. Drones are mobile artillery, Lembit, that can actually look at you, see where you are hiding, and then fly in there. It's like having a homing beacon on artillery.
That sounds really grim.
It is.
But okay, counterpoint. Why can't the other side do the same thing?
Because they don't have enough drones. Literally the air defense, or shall we say, the systemic defense that Russia have is far in advance. The S-300, the S-400. Ukraine don't have any planes left. They don't have very few helicopters left. And of course, people will turn around and tell you that it's nonsense. Well, just look how many American planes have been dropped out of the sky already by these so-called accidents in Iran, where they have the Russian S-300. And of course, they haven't even learnt the full integrated system yet. So the Russians have air superiority everywhere. They can build more drones. The whole of the West cannot keep up.
So do you mean drones like the ones we can see on the screen there?
Yeah, we're talking about Garand drones, which are these very large ones that are as big as a man, and of course they can launch 1,000 of these Garand drones on their own. Then just the Garand drones, never mind the Shahed drones and many others. So Russia can just literally overwhelm you with numbers.
And okay, so there seem to be two kind of drones we're talking about. The kind of drone which comes up and hovers and then does that stuff. The other ones which are like radio controlled aircraft. Just tell us about the ones, if you can get that other one up again for a minute. Tell us about what what those ones do. What are those ones for?
So you get the Baba Yagas, which are the hovering drones, and you can either use them for reconnaissance or you can use them to blow people up. But of course, they are very much along the lines of very, very deadly. Now, if you don't think that the drone warfare hasn't changed anything, go and have a look in Iran and see how many American soldiers are left in those 14 American bases that are within 1,000 kilometers of literally the Iran, shall we say, range of the drones. So you're talking about almost every single airbase that America hold in various other countries like Kuwait, UAE, and of course, the ones in Dubai and the ones in Iraq have been hit by these drones. So drone warfare has completely changed the look, and the Americans have actually abandoned most of those bases, and that is because of drone warfare. They were unprepared for what was coming. Now, this is just the Shahed drones. This isn't, the big drones that the Russians have got that can pack all sorts of firepower. And then, of course, you use up your Patriot battery systems because you're firing at drones, and you don't know if that happens to be the first 500 drones that come over might not be packing any explosive whatsoever. You don't know. So you fire your air defense missiles, and eventually you're out of them. And then, of course, it's open season.
Has that actually happened yet? I'm not aware that it has.
Yeah, quite a bit. You will remember, of course, that the Americans were literally saying, well, we can't give you any more Patriots. You have to remember that the people who make the shells for these Patriot missile systems only make 850 of these a year then.
Really?
Yes.
That's not very often.
So they make six. They make 6 of the PAC-3, 600 of the PAC-3 drones, and they have just signed with Lockheed Martin a new deal where Lockheed Martin over the next 7 years are going to produce 2,000 of these missiles instead of 600. So they're going to raise it over the next 7 years by threefold.
How much are they worth each?
You're looking at 3 to 4 million per missile.
Okay. And the Garand drone, which I think we've got a picture of, is that the Garand drone?
Yeah, anywhere between 10 to 40,000 pounds.
Okay, so they're using a 3 million buck machine to knock out a 20,000 buck machine.
Yep.
150 times more expensive.
Yes, exactly that. The cost of the war is prohibitive.
Sorry, 1,500 times more expensive.
Yes.
Yeah, that's crazy.
4 million.
40,000, 150 times more expensive. Surely they'll just go bankrupt in the end.
Yeah, well, they already are. Most of Europe is already pretty much bankrupt. And of course, but they're just keeping printing money. And of course, there's a huge recession to come when all this is over as they try to balance the book. But here's the thing, Lembit. Not only is the Patriot missile so expensive, round about anywhere between 6 to 9% of every batch that you get misfires and actually goes into your own buildings or hits your own structures.
That's shocking.
Yeah.
I had the impression from the Iraq war, was it, that the Patriot system was really good?
Can you name me any Scud missiles that the Patriot missile system brought down?
No, but
Not one. Not one.
Scud, yeah.
And that's a Scud. That's a clunk compared to what we've got on the battlefield now. That's a clunky. I mean, you can take drones down with the Patriots, no problem at all. But you can't. They don't take. They're lucky if they hit any of the ballistic missiles. Very lucky. They have to fire about 5 or 6 of these to try and hit one ballistic missile, and they can't touch the hypersonic.
Right. So asymmetric warfare economically. I suppose all of this applies to Iran as well. Then, as you say, the Iranian theatre of conflict as well. Tell me again, how much do you say that those Patriots cost?
Patriots cost anywhere between 3 to 4 million a time, roughly about 4 million per missile, and the battery system itself costs 100 million.
So if Iran takes one of those out, that's 100 million down the tubes.
Yes, absolutely, and it's already done that.
Has it?
It's done that with 4 batteries already. That's why the Americans have been calling them in, stealing them from South Korea and Germany.
And has Russia achieved this? Have they knocked these out in Ukraine?
Oh, they've knocked them out in vast numbers. That's why everybody's scrambling around the world to try and get these things. I don't know why they're doing it, to be honest. You'd be much better off buying the Chinese ones or buying the Russian S-300, 400s.
Not sure they'd be selling them to America at the moment. But yet you still get the headlines. Ukraine's military success is exposing the myth of an inevitable Russian victory. This guess what? Well, you can see it's the Atlantic Council said this.
Yes.
Yeah. Who are they?
The Atlantic. Literally, if you go and look at the Atlantic Council, all these. The trouble is with these papers, and nobody is independent anymore, Lembit, and they get their funding. Obviously, they get funding from USAID. They get funding from the Foreign and Commonwealth Office in the UK. If you go and look at almost every news organisation now, they're not wealthy oligarchs. They are literally funded by government. And those who are oligarchs, of course, are, shall we say, they're very much hardcore. They're good friends with the military-industrial complex. And, of course, they're going to push the propaganda they're told to. Yeah,
I'm not convinced that Ukraine is having military success. But there we go. Meanwhile, we've got Trump, as you said before. He's threatened to stop weapons for Ukraine unless Europe joins the Hormuz coalition. NATO's top official urged key alliance members to offer help to US to reopen key waterway. This seems to me an act of hope because they're just not keen to do it, are they?
It's complete nonsense, Lembit. Trump is not going to stop selling weapons. If you stop the military-industrial complex selling weapons, America go broke very quickly.
Meanwhile, we've got Mark Rutte, who's one of the oddest people in politics. Really strikes me as a really strange person. NATO chief says Ukraine front line shifting unfavorably.
Yeah, this is one of Rutte's absolute brilliant things that he came out with. This is the head, and of course Jens Stoltenberg, who was his predecessor, turned around and said that there was no deal done whatsoever where the Western powers wouldn't move 1 inch further east if the United Germany could join NATO. That was proven to be an utter lie when we got the paperwork. Mark Rutte,
Baker, wasn't it? James Baker said that.
No, it was Jens Stoltenberg said it was never agreed with Russia. And of course, James Baker was the one. Yeah, you're right. James Baker told Edward Shevardnadze and of course Mikhail Gorbachev that you allow a unified Germany to join NATO, we won't take one step further east. And of course, since then, 14 countries have joined NATO in the Eastern Bloc. And here's the problem that you've got is Mark Rutte, not only does he call Trump daddy, but he turned around and, get this, Lembit, he actually turned around and said, you can go and check it, it's a matter of record, Ukraine are advancing just in the wrong direction.
It's crazy. He probably thought he was funny, but I just think he's a really weird guy. I mean, I just literally think he's a weird person.
They're all failed politicians in their own countries.
You want to very say again?
They're all failed politicians in their own countries. Mark Rutte's absolutely detested in his home country.
Which is why probably he's ended up in NATO then. Yes. As I say, it's just, I want somebody who just engenders confidence. You just think this is a ordinary conservative person who's not going to make some crazy decisions.
There was one, they just voted him out. He was in Hungary, Lembit.
Viktor Orban. Yeah, I'm going to cover that in another day too. And then this is almost make you laugh. There's one other person who seems to be completely irrelevant. There he is, British Prime Minister. This is what he said now. The British Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, said he is fed up seeing energy bills in the UK swing up and down because of actions taken by US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. The comments came as oil prices, which have soared during the US-Israeli war with Iran, fluctuated amid a fragile 2-week ceasefire. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Starmer is absolutely irrelevant to this whole thing, I think.
Okay, well, he wants to blame Russia for the energy bills. Please, Keir Starmer, tell me how 2% of Russia's LNG found its way to Great Britain and why bills went up in some cases 219%, and why, when they actually wanted to cap the companies charging for the electric and the gas, they wanted to cap them, and you put a block on it, a veto from them doing that. So Keir Starmer's lying through his teeth here. 2% of our LNG came from Russia. Our bills went up, in some cases, 219%. And when they wanted to put a cap on the prices being charged by the corporations, he put a block on it.
I would say that the problem is their ridiculous war on carbon dioxide. But can we also, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but do we concur that he is completely irrelevant to the outcome in Ukraine and Iran?
Yes, he is. The only thing he's going to do for his puppet masters is possibly get your children killed by trying to reintroduce some sort of conscription. Starmer is pushing this because, of course, he's signed up a 100-year pact with Ukraine to give them $3 billion for the next 100 years. That's $300 billion that we're going to funnel into Zelensky's pockets. And, of course, he's been told to do this by his World Economic Forum masters. What about tackling child poverty in the UK?
Yeah, and many more things besides. So let's finish with predictions, as I always do with you. First of all, with Ukraine, how much longer will it last?
You're going to start to see real cracks appearing round about the August and September of literally this year. You're going to see Russia make quite considerable gains over the summer.
And final question, just in terms of Zelensky himself, how much longer can he carry on? He's well past his mandate and he hasn't had elections.
As long as he keeps going, because the moment, of course, that Zelensky stops, either Zelensky, who is the UK favourite because he's being groomed to take over from Zelensky, if Zelensky becomes too untenable to keep, then they will just replace him with somebody else. So Zelensky's just a useful puppet. And to be honest with you, Putin doesn't want to replace him at the moment because literally Zelensky is useful to the Russians as well because he's so incompetent.
Where can people get more from Warren Thornton?
Monday to Friday, we have a new show, Warren Thornton on Patreon or warrenthornton.com. And of course, on Sunday nights, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. And of course, our special guest is the wonderful Lembit Öpik from Unprecedented TV.
Though my most recent episode was a little bit bitty because I put my children first. So I was in and out because I was moving them around.
If only all English people would do that, then.
Well, putting their children first, yeah, that's a whole different story with connotations of talking about migration policy too, and perhaps about work of Rupert Lowe and his inquiry. Anyway, thank you so much. That is Warren Thornton, who I think is pretty informed when it comes to these things. My judgment is that Zelensky is forgotten because he's not a winner. He can't win. And when you read these strange headlines about, oh, Ukraine's proving that Russia's beatable and so on. It's all rubbish. Russia's going to win this. It's a question of when and how many lives will be lost in the meantime. If you did like what you saw, and even if you disagreed with it, if you reckon that we were being authentic, please do like and subscribe. Go to @Unprecedented TV and you'll be able to sign up there. Also, I'm very happy to have dialogue with you on X. I'm fairly active on that. But more than anything, big thank you to Warren Thornton and to you for having the courage of your convictions to work things out for yourself. See you next time.
Immediate ceasefire in Gaza. The return of the sausages.